Alright, so it's been about a week since I've been using the xTool S1, and I want to go through some of the projects and bits and pieces I've created along the way. Now, these three here are basically the first three engravings that I made on the S1, and this one here is made out of basically engraved onto MDF. So you can see there's tons of detail there. MDF reminds me it's almost like cardboard, like a condensed cardboard, really. I don't think it's the best material to engrave on. It does get a lot of detail on there, but when you cut around the edges, it does smell a bit for a while. It smells fine now. You kind of got to air it out a touch. We do get a lot of detail. See, you can sort of see this little cat that I used to, basically from the AI website from xTool. And here's a little version here, a tiny little version. I tried to go really small, and these are just with some settings, I think about 50% power and 160 millimeters per second. So pretty amazing that you can get something that small. I think this is about 2 by 2 centimeters. And another project as well that I found on the xTool projects website. So that's a dragon, and just amazing the amount of detail and the fact that you've actually got, these indent regions here. I like how it just looks like it pops out and actually feels elevated on the lighter bits, and on the darker bits more recessed, especially where there's little bits of lines here where the wood, this sort of wooden effect in the background. The S1 has actually engraved that a little bit deeper. I then moved on and started working on a bunch of these other engravings, and these are a couple on different bits of wood. So this is on a kind of softer wood, paulownia wood, and one thing you have to be really careful of with softer woods is that it just engraves quite quickly. Does struggle to get details, okay, but you do get a lot of elevation of just the lighter areas, and it engraves faster. This is a bit of hardwood, and you can see the details are a bit more pronounced, and you don't get really any of that burning effect. Did cut around the edges of these ones as well, and I was able to do that in one pass. This one, however, I didn't get the settings quite right, so cut through about 3/4 and I had to break it off manually. So it does take a little bit of trial and error, especially because these two bits of wood are not the standard bits of wood that are included with the S1. So you just have to play around with the settings. A couple other examples here of that paulownia wood, and one thing I found is initially I was engraving with the grain of the wood, but now I found that it's actually better if you engrave against the grain of the wood. So this one here is on the same bit of wood engraved against, so I put it this way into the machine, and so it was just engraving from top to bottom, whereas this one here I had it in this direction, sort of landscape orientation. And yeah, you do see more of the marks in the wood, and it just seems to emphasize some of these areas in the wood that have less density. It kind of seemed to sort of get bogged down or stuck in some of those areas. Whereas, yeah, if you have a look at this one, this is just an engraving of a photograph of myself. And I mean, the details there is just amazing. Look at that. You can even see the folds on my t-shirt. And I'll just bring it up a bit closer, see if the camera is able to focus. And even in the background, these are actually small paintings that I had stuck on my wall at the time when I had this photo taken of me. And you can see, that's my grandmother there. That's another face, a portrait. It's scene of Venice, portrait of me and my sister. So, even on softer wood like this, same wood, okay, but I've just gone a bit lighter on the engraving settings, gone about 50%, 40 to 50%, and engraved against the wood. Also experimented around on some plywood. These are 4 examples here just of 1.2 centimeter plywood, so 12 millimeter plywood. This is all just with one pass, and I find with plywood you are able to get a little bit more detail as well. And you know, this is a sunflower painting that I just transferred onto XCS and engraved it. I can't remember if I did it against the grain. Yeah, I don't remember if I did it against the grain. Probably, yeah, probably did, because I put it in this way. And yeah, fair bit of detail. You can see even some elevated areas where the petals of the flower come out of the wood. Another one I did of Venice, scene of Venice. And yeah, another just copy, really just a copy paste job right into XCS, and just turned it into a grayscale engraving. You can see just on the back here, I almost got through the wood, but I at the time wasn't sure of the settings and I went a bit too slow. But after doing one of those cutting tests, I was able to actually cut through on 2mm speed. So 2mm speed, 100%, and lowering the laser down 6mm. So really that's maxing it out, but I was able to cut through 1.2 centimeter plywood, which I think is pretty amazing with a 20-watt version of this laser. If you've got the 40-watt version, probably no issues. Got an engrave test here in the back as well. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a stain or something on the left side of the bit of wood, so it wasn't so accurate over there, but this is a good little test to run as well, to have an understanding of what settings you might want to put in. So, you know, 100% at 200, that probably would have been a better setting than what I used initially to carve out those pieces, those engravings. No burning on any of those settings whatsoever. It's difficult to see here on camera, but as you move more closer to that bottom right hand corner, you can see that the laser is removing more and more of the wood. So you're going to get more of a deeper impression, okay? And as you go over to these other ones here to the left, it does remove a bit of the wood, tiny bit, as you run your finger across on top of these bits and pieces, but yeah, it's more pronounced on the right hand side. So if you want a deep engraving, you know, using some of this setting here on the right hand side, bottom right hand side, is probably better. Whereas if you want a lighter engraving just on the surface of the wood, you're going to pick something like that. So always important to run one of these tests on a new bit of material. Back to the plywood examples again. This is a line drawing, so that engraved pretty well, and it's gone fairly deep into the wood without burning it as well. Okay. And this one here, I just tried to test out the capabilities of the machine, and I put in a really detailed image. Now, this image was actually, I think it's about 20 times the size of this little sort of sci-fi image, and it was able to engrave a fair bit of detail on, you know, with just one pass. Here are a couple of photo engravings that I'm quite proud of. So these ones are done on hardwood. I can't remember what type of hardwood, but yeah, it's 6mm hardwood, I believe. And, you know, you can see it's just one pass. This is a photograph of me and my sister's dog. It's kind of difficult to see the dog. This would have been better if I'd gone through with a second pass and just emphasized maybe some of the darker areas as well. But you know, still pretty good. I think it's done a great job for one pass. And here you can see there's different densities of the wood as well. So when it engraves onto the different densities, there is a change in color and texture. So, you know, just seeing here between this side of the dog and on the right side. So that's something you have to keep in mind. This one I really, really like. Now, this was just a photograph that I found of Melbourne, and it just did such a fantastic job. If we look up close there, to engrave all these tiny little details. It actually looks, it's difficult to see on camera, but it actually looks at that tram to the left is sticking out of the wood. The little windows are so detailed. Even the building there on the back there, you can see all those little lines. It almost looks like a ruler. They're pretty impressive just considering how small this engraving is as well. Here's an engraving I did on a bit of stainless steel, and this is of the same dragon that engraved onto some MDF before, and it's not too visible. You know, in person it does look definitely more obvious. You know, I think this would have been beneficial if I'd gone through it with a couple more runs, maybe on a higher powered setting. Okay, but you know, not bad considering that the stainless steel wasn't pre-treated with anything before. And here I've got a couple of little projects that I found on the xTool website. So this was a keychain, little keychain, 3mm plywood keychain. So I think that took about a couple minutes to engrave and cut out. And this one here, my personal favorite of the two, it's like a Pokemon Pikachu keyring, and this actually came in two parts, so it engraves two of these circles, and I just glued them together to create this keychain. And again, that probably took about 4 minutes to do.